Two for $1 YouTube video day. So in anime, dubs come off a little bit odd. And I wanted to compare something just quickly between Dragon Ball Z and a dub that I watched recently. There has to be some type of balance. I'm also going to make another note as well, just because I'm very interested in this idea. So, watching Jujutsu Kaisen and comparing it to other like regular trash or regular medium anime that I'd be watching sometimes, just because sometimes you gotta eat garbage. You know what I mean? Just sometimes you gotta consume some not good stuff just to be easy. So, 3 main ideas of this video: one, dub Dragon Ball Z, dub and other stuff, and that balance between it, and then Jujutsu Kaisen's greatness, man. All right, so first of all, watching the anime scene of a like well-respected anime that I'm pretty sure many people know, and the guy goes in dub, "Your opponent is me," right? Which is very clearly not American syntax, right? That's not how English speakers speak, but that is how Japanese people speak. That is how Arab speaks. That is how a lot of places around the world speak. That type of syntax, where the subject and predicate of English kind of switch. Obviously, you can say that in English, and I'm sure I'll talk weird like that sometimes too, because I do have this kind of background and experience with different languages. But for the most part, that's an odd thing to say as an English speaker in English. Whereas in the dub, he said, "Your opponent or your next opponent is me." In English, you'd say, "I'm your next opponent." You know what I mean? So going to Dragon Ball Z now, and how they really Americanized the dub. I was going back watching the American movies, the dub movies, and obviously I grew up watching the dub. And so I always have this opinion that whatever you experience first is what you're going to be most comfortable with. And when it came to the dub and comparing it to the sub, they really did Americanize it a lot. One of the biggest things that you'll notice is the American heavy metal rock music that they put into the show, or things like cutting empty spaces with background voice characters that are not even present in the like in the scene, in the shot. You'll have somebody's voice in the back. I was watching one YouTuber, Mark or something like that, was talking about that, right? And those type of things, now obviously for a Japanese audience or for the original person, for a person who wants to see the original Japanese art style of Akira Toriyama, they're gonna be like, "Oh, this is whack. This is not good." And that's one thing that I saw while trying to go back to watch the American versions of the Dragon Ball Z movies. Was like one person of the entire everybody in the comment section was like, "Oh, I don't want to watch the dub and see the way that they put heavy metal music on top of this. No one wants to hear that." And I was like, "I do." I went to the comment section. Everybody else did. Like it was such a popular thing growing up. And that Americanization of the anime really did, I think, blossomed. This is my personal opinion. Blossomed the Dragon Ball Z series and franchise in America. Very curious to know how it goes amongst the cartel and Spanish-speaking people, and why it's so popular amongst the cartel. But it really did make the Americanization of the anime and the dub made a huge impact on American audiences and why they like the show so much, in my opinion. Okay, now to the second thing that I wanted to discuss was Jujutsu Kaisen, man. What the heck, bro? What they be doing, bro? Mashallah, I'm watching season 2. I know super late, don't judge me. But man, they be doing masterpieces out here. It's interesting to watch an anime that's, a garbage anime and see that they'll just basically throw anything out on the window. The most expected, obvious story you can expect, series of events, progression of events that you expect. And there's this balance that Jujutsu Kaisen does really well of realism, which is an interesting word, and storytelling. That's cool storytelling. Generally, when I say realism, obviously, cursed users and cursed energy is not real, but it's how you do say they kind of like build their own science in the world, right? The laws of physics in Jujutsu Kaisen are different than the laws of real life, but they have to follow the laws of Jujutsu Kaisen, right? Same thing with Dragon Ball Z or with Naruto or with any other show that has supernatural elements. As long as the supernatural elements are built like laws of physics that we can see and experiment in real life, and they're built like that in the show, in the movie, or whatever it is, you're kind of like, "Oh, that's cool, let's go with it." You know what I mean? That's nice. And so obviously Jujutsu Kaisen has that realism, but then there's the other level of realism where, oh well, why would a guy do something like that, or how would a person fall in that certain way, or if a person hit him with that type of strength, then how was it going to respond like that? That doesn't make sense, right? Things like power scaling become a big issue in a lot of animes where like, oh, they just keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Like, okay, well, you know what I mean? It's kind of getting dumb, right? But Jujutsu Kaisen does an interesting job of balancing that realism with still making great storylines and great story points, which I think is kind of interesting. You know, I'm sure you've watched the movie before and been like, why did the main character do that? Or why did the bad guy do that? But when you're watching Jujutsu Kaisen, you're like, oh, that's actually an interesting thing that he chose to do that. And it's not just he did it because it'll look cool. You know what I mean? Sometimes you'll watch a Netflix movie, for example, and the bad guy or the good guy will choose to do a certain course of action. And you're like, man, the director only did that because it's going to look cool cinematography wise. You know what I mean? But in Jujutsu Kaisen, you're like, oh, that actually makes sense to do. And it's going to look cool cinematography wise. So that's a cool, interesting thing about Jujutsu Kaisen that I thought, all right, cool. That was my video. So, guys.